In case you haven't been paying attention to the goings-on across the pond, the UK, well, it's fallen. I know that this is probably the, 398,000th proclamation of that very statement, but this time around, things are getting pretty bad, okay? Like, there have been sketchy things before, but I really just detest what's going on right now, and so many people are as well, and it's really building up to something that could be quite contentious in the very near future. But UK free speech crackdown sees up to 30 people a day arrested for petty offenses such as retweets and cartoons. Yes, because that's what law enforcement are concerning themselves with. Now, I did the video about the UK girl getting arrested, the 14-year-old arrested from, defending her sister from a grown-ass man with a little ibble-dabble in his accent, instead of asking the uncomfortable question as to why a grown-ass man is following around a pair of preteens. No, just lock up the kids for brandishing self-defense weapons. Makes a lot of sense now, doesn't it? Now, why are they scared of those people? Well, because there's a certain culture, certain types of gangs that very much permeate the UK, all because they don't want to look after their citizenry. And with a lot of these declarations and arrests that have gone on recently, and even a UK official so boldly and brazenly saying that the rights of the illegal, or rather, I think that's what it was, the illegal migrants trump that of the UK citizenry. You are seeing what they are prioritizing it in real time, what they are waving right in front of your face, and how they're cracking down on what they perceive as crime as opposed to what is actual crime. And it's, once this kicks up a notch, don't say you weren't warned about it. But Bernadette Spoforth, lay in jail on a blue gym mattress in a daze, finding it difficult to move, even breathe. I just closed down, but the other half of my brain went into Jack Reacher mode, referring to, the fictional hero, right? Every single detail was vivid, bright, sharp focus. She remembers noticing that you can't drown yourself in the toilet because there's no standing water in it, and flush button is too far to reach. If your head were in the bowl. Wow, actually. Well, considering I've never been in jail before, but I have been sick enough to consider, it's like, okay, how can we go ahead and get out of this situation before? But I've never thought before about trying to drown myself in a toilet, but okay. Maybe those are the thoughts that run through your mind when your government is trying to lock you up for spicy takes on the internet. She'd end up being detained for 36 hours in July of 2024. That's it. She's thinking about ending it all? What? Okay, 3 girls had just been murdered in Southport, England, and at a Taylor Swift-themed dance party, but Spoforth was not under suspicion for the crime. Instead, horrified by the fog of the developing tragedy, she reposted on X and other users' content blaming newly arrived migrants for the ghastly crime, clarifying that, in her tweet, if this is true. Hours later, she realized that she had received bad information and deleted the post, but it had already been seen thousands of times. Oh my God. The murders resulted in widespread civil unrest in the UK, where mass migration is a central issue for citizens. 4 police vehicles arrived at her home later that day. Interesting. They probably found her quicker than they found the people responsible for this, I would imagine. Spoforth, 56, a successful businesswoman from Chester, was placed under arrest. We're a year on now, and I can honestly tell you that I don't think I will ever recover. I don't mean that as a victim. These poor children are victims, but I will never trust anything the authorities say to me ever again. Her story is one repeated almost hourly in the UK, where data suggests that over 30 people a day are arrested for speech crimes, about 12,000 a year, under laws written well before the age of social media that to make crimes for sending grossly offensive messages or sharing content of an incident, obscene, or menacing character. And it's interesting. It always seems, right? Because apparently you can get, snatched up for any post that could be deemed indecent, obscene, or menacing of character. But it only ever seems to apply to 2 groups whenever you do this: illegal migrants or government officials. Never any other groups that are out there, and it always tends to be, the law-abiding, otherwise considered to be a law-abiding citizenry. Long and short of it, I would say you're honest criminals. But if it's somebody coming out or calling out indigenous Britons thanks to their government-issued phone, we never ever see anybody snatched up for that. That's interesting. Social media continues to be flooded with videos of British cops banging on doors in the middle of the night. Oh God, there was that one from last year, something like that. You had, I think that was over the TV license fee, but you had somebody trying to break into a window. And then of course last year you also had the lesbian Nana arrest an autistic kid and use pepper spray on a moving vehicle. Like, this shit is so fucking nuts. And now, well, they have for years at this point in time for different affiliated causes as well. But now there's starting to be a few more protests that are out there because Keir Starmer, yeah, he ended up pushing things a little bit too far with his Online Censorship Act, and then also turning a blind eye to those migrant gangs that are running amok everywhere. And word of this has, of course, reached across the pond because within the past week or so, Starmer made the trip over to the White House and, he ended up getting roasted by J.D. Vance, but that ended up being much ado about nothing because a lot of this stuff ended up percolating in the subsequent days. But on Tuesday, the U.S. State Department's annual human rights report slammed British authorities' serious restrictions on freedom of expression, writing that the human rights situation has worsened in Britain over the last year and criticized laws like, the 2023 Online Safety Act. We consider freedom of expression to be foundational component of a functioning democracy, State Department Press Secretary Tammy Bruce told reporters, calling Britain's chilling government actions intolerable in a free society. Well, yeah, of course. But Britain's Labour government has brushed off America's criticism and doubled down on nebulous and Kafka-esque speech codes. In the ashes of a riot that erupted in the Southport murders, Starmer bragged that over 400 people had been arrested and jailed, some for online activity. Great stuff, man. This July, the Home Office announced that it would be assembling an elite force of special agents, yes, very special indeed, drawn from across the country to monitor speech on social media. Also, this summer, the UK government updated its definition of terrorist ideologies to include cultural nationalism. Yes, so people proud to be Britain. Or British, rather, singling out Westerners who express concerns over mass migrations. Fucking A. Then last Thursday, a court acquitted a Labour councillor, Ricky Jones, after he was caught on video calling for the murder of anti-mass migration protesters, telling a crowd we need to cut all their throats and get rid of all of them. A Labour councillor saying this stuff, and he gets off scot-free. Like I said before, you never see it go. You only ever see these arrests run in one direction, huh? Speech advocates immediately decried a two-tier justice system, comparing Jones' case to Connolly's. And who are we talking about here? Well, we might as well refresh ourselves on this situation. 42-year-old Lucy Connolly, currently sitting in a prison for a 31-month sentence for publishing a written material with an intent to stir up racial hatred. Kind of like saying that you should, slit the throats of ethnic British folks. Yeah, no, okay. Ricky Jones, obviously not getting that same type of treatment. An offense, yes, under a law from 1986, following the slaughter of Southport. Connolly posted on X for her support for mass deportations. Exactly. Defending your border? I know, right? Obviously, very bigoted speech. Authorities say she falsely claimed that Al-Qaeda supporting killer was a migrant when in fact it was his parents who were migrants from Rwanda. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, it's just such terrible stuff. Even worse than the atrocity they committed, apparently. Connolly, like Spoforth, realized her mistake, deleted the tweet 3 hours after posting, but the police still showed up a week later to arrest her. Yep, and give her a 31-month stay in prison. What the fuck is going on here? But yeah, just going back to the whole, nationalistic tendencies, a protest leader, Reform Sarah White specifically, held a Union Jack on the steps of the council offices in Epping. Okay, yeah, she was out there with the Union Jack. Okay, right, as you can see, there's the building right there. It's all right there in color, alive for the world to see. After marching from the Bell Hotel, instead of leaving her there, police dragged her down and arrested her, causing the crowd outside the council to erupt in anger. And that is just one of the many examples of what we're seeing out here, but probably the worst and most egregious so far, and the one that could really be a flashpoint situation. Father Ted co-creator Gran Linehan arrested over trans X posts. What exactly does that mean? He has the same takes as J.K. Rowling, far less reach, but he ended up getting snapped up because of this. Probably because they think at this point in time, I would imagine, right? Like, it's probably a calculated effort. It's like, okay, how much more trans pushback does J.K. Rowling have to get before we can go in there and, black bag her in the middle of the night? Just wondering. It's like, how much more public sentiment and how much more goodwill does she need to shed before we can get away with that? I bet you they're weighing that up. The conversations, I would imagine, have probably already began. But yes, this right here, it's probably the most high-profile arrest. But Father Ted, co-creator, Gran Linehan, yeah, he's just comedy legend, by the way. But Gran Linehan, or Han rather, there's no M there. was arrested at Heathrow Airport on Monday after arriving from a flight from Arizona and faces an investigation over recent social media posts on X. Monday, September the 1st at 1300 hours, so 1 o'clock in the afternoon, arrested a man at Heathrow Airport when he arrived on an inbound American Airlines flight. The man was in his 50s and arrested on suspicion of inciting violence. This is in relation to the posts on X, the Metropolitan Police told The Hollywood Reporter in the statement on Tuesday. Linehan was not named directly in the statement, but multiple outlets, including the BBC, reported that Linehan was the person arrested. Linehan himself wrote about the arrest on Substack. And after being taken into police custody, officers became concerned for his health and he was taken to the hospital. His condition was neither life-threatening nor life-changing, but yeah, he did end up in hospital because of elevated blood pressure, which is one part weak, but another part, a much more significant part, totally unnecessary because it's social media posts, not even directed at anybody. What the hell are we doing? Linehan was released on bail pending further investigation for 3 posts made in April of this year. On Substack, Linehan said his bail conditions ordered him not to go on Twitter and that an arrest and an initial review with police officers over X posts related to trans people. Later during the interview itself, the tone shifted. The officers conducting it asked about each of the terrible tweets in turn in a sort of earnest intensity, usually reserved for discussing something serious like, crime. I explained that the punch tweets were was a serious point made with a joke. Men who enter women's spaces are abusers and need to be challenged every time, Linehan recounted. Which, yeah, I make my jokes about that type of stuff where it's like, okay, finally, women, you're getting all of the repercussions of the stuff that you were voting for, and now you got to deal with it yourself. But in general, I'm on his side when it comes to this stuff. That's all comedy at the end of the day. And yeah, you got dudes walking around in women's bathrooms. I don't think so, man, because are there legitimate trans people that are out there? Well, yes, of course. There's always that fraction of people that legitimately just go about these surgeries because they, for whatever reason, believe that they were born in the wrong body. But here's the thing. They don't make spectacles out of themselves. This isn't a grandiose and narcissistic approach to getting attention. They just want to live their life. You wouldn't know it as long as they have, good enough surgery, of course. But that's never who these people, and myself included, are ever talking about. Eventually, the police interview, the comedy writer, took a toll on his health. The stress of being arrested for jokes was literally threatening my life, so I was escorted to A&E, where I write this now, after spending about 8 hours under observation. And then shared the allegedly offending X post on his Substack page. The 1990s Father Ted comedy for the BBC centered around 3 misfit priests and their housekeepers in a remote Irish island. Yes, and it's absolutely hilarious. This is just a similarly hilarious situation, just how Orwellian the UK has become, and it's only going to get worse from here. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.